Hello, everyone. I'm Sia Caramelagos, and I'm teaching this beginner class on JavaScript. And I asked around for some other speakers who might be interested in teaching some of the concepts, and Joe Morgan is here today to do that. Hi, Joe.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Sure. So I guess I'll just kind of jump in. So hi, everyone. I'm Joe Morgan. Been a developer for, 7-10 years. Really depends on how you count it. I kind of backed into it, doing some jobs that required some HTML and CSS, then more HTML, CSS, then started writing JavaScript, then started writing other languages. And then I started doing programming full time. I know a bit about JavaScript, I hope. I wrote a book about it. I go and I talk about it. I write for DigitalOcean. I've written for some other places. So that's kind of my background, why I guess you should listen to me. So I was asked to talk about whatever I wanted to. And my favorite thing in JavaScript are arrays. And I love arrays because you can do pretty much anything with them. And they're really flexible. And so they're a really nice thing to have in your toolbox because they can let you store data, retrieve data, manipulate data, go through the data in a lot of different ways. So I'll just kind of show what an array is and give some real basic, and then we'll just kind of have it back and forth, is I think how this is going.
Cool.
So, let's go ahead. We'll make an array. So we'll start with let, just in case we want to reassign it. We'll do that. So let's say, let's just make an array. Let's just make a really basic array. So we'll make an array called basic, and it has 3 items that are numbers, integers. So if you look at it, in the integers, you can also do something that has strings in it. So let's make like some words. I always like to do writers because before I was a developer, I was a librarian. So I always,
nice.
I know a lot of authors just off the top of my head. So just put in some people I like. James Baldwin. Let's see, who else do I like? I'm going to blank now that I'm.
I know.
Let's see. Well, let's just do. I was going to do Stephen King, but I can't remember. Is he a PH or a VE?
Maybe a V. I don't know. Someone will definitely correct us if we're wrong.
I actually worked with a person named Stephen King, but he was the other way.
Uh-huh.
The one was, he was the opposite, and now I can't remember who it do. So let's just do, and I think I misspelled her name also.
Oh no, I think it's right.
Okay, cool. So as you can tell, I haven't been a librarian for a while, so I'm a little rusty on my author names. I can't just flip them. Oops. So here is authors. So I'm just going to show you a few things that you can do with them. I'm trying not to get caught up in the details. It's mostly I wanted to show you the many different ways you can use array, and then we can kind of jump into some questions. So I'm going to clear out the screen real fast. And the first one we had was basic. And so one of the things that you can do with arrays is you can plot an item. So the arrays are 0 index, which means that to plot an item, you have to know the number of it. So let's look at basic again. So this one's kind of confusing because I have the numbers 1, 2, 3 in there, but the indexes actually start at 0. So if we were to say basic.
So they're like strings, right?
Yep. What's that?
I said they're like strings, right?
Yeah, exactly. So 0 is actually 1, 1 is actually 2. So there you go. Let's look at the authors. That's probably a little easier. So the first author was James Baldwin, and we can pull him out by that. Now, what's really cool about arrays is that you can do all sorts. They have all these different methods that you can use to work with them. So for example, if we wanted to make a list of our authors, and we wanted to make it a comma separated, we could use a method called join. And then you just say, what do you want to join them with? So in this case, we want to use a comma, and we want to put a space between it, comma space. Oops, I didn't get the right one there. So authors join, and it'll just give us a nice little list. So this gives you can have a collection of information, you can pass it around, and you can join it up as you want to. Or you can manipulate it later. And something that really kind of turned me into a huge array fan are what are called array methods. And these are methods that take a function and then they'll do that function on each thing. So let's say we're going to map over the author. So what a map does is it goes through each function and it performs that action on the function and returns the result. So each item is going to be a single author. So we have many authors. The function will take a single author. I don't know if you've learned arrow functions yet, but it's an arrow function. So it's taking author as the parameter, and we'll just say, we'll make that 2 uppercase. And return it. And there you go. It returns us the array. Now, here's the interesting thing about those is that they don't actually mutate the original array. So if we looked at the original array, still lowercase.
And mutate means change, right?
Mutate means change, yep. So array methods are nice because they can act on the array and they'll return the results. So let's say we wanted uppercase authors. We wanted to save that. We would just assign that to a new value.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have both items there. So you can work with the data without having to worry about kind of breaking it, or, so that way you can do something in one function, return the data, and the data is going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's one huge exception to this, which is the method called sort. So sorting is something you want to do in arrays all the time. So let's say we wanted to sort this. If you call just a sort function, it's smart enough that it can figure out that I want to sort it alphabetically because they're strings, and returns James Baldwin, James Austin. Well, that one actually did change the array. So you kind of have to be careful about that because there actually are quite a few methods that change the array, but a lot of the array methods that take a function generally don't, with sort being the big exception. So there's a quick kind of rundown of what I like about arrays is they hold a variety of information. You can pull that information out one at a time. You can act on all the information. You can change that information from an array into another data type really easily. And I guess the last thing I'll point out is arrays are kind of something that can move back and forth between a lot of different things. And the reason that is because an array can hold a lot of different types of information, including another array. So let's say we wanted to have a key value pair. So let's say we wanted to have a key. Let's see if we can think of something else. So let's say we had a restaurant, and we had a menu, and we want to have appetizers, and then the appetizers we have different things like fried mushrooms. So see here, I'm using a lot of arrays inside of arrays. So there's an array that contains first item, which then contains another array. And so then we'll have main items here. And then let's say we'll have something like, let's see, we'll just have some sort of pasta dish. We'll just say pasta. And we also have, let's say, hummus wouldn't be a very good item. Let's say falafel.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
There you go. Oh, and I missed. There you go. And so this essentially would be an array equivalent of an object that's very similar. So let's say menu is an object. And I don't know if this is something you've gone over yet.
No, but it's good to look at things in the future too.
Yep. So this is another very common way of storing information. And so you can use objects as key value pairs. So let's have our same thing here. Let's hope that I got the right number. I did. It's a key value pair, but you can see that it kind of actually has the same information. So the array up top, which I didn't save to a variable, you could pull out the same information. And in fact, most data, I want to say data objects, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Data structures have a way to kind of move into an array. So actually, with an object, if you call entries, the entries method on it, maybe I have an old version of Node that doesn't have this. I must. Well, I guess you have to trust me. My version of Node must be out of date.
Sometimes it's like the weird version too, right? Like array. Well, I guess it wouldn't be. I'm gonna look it up. You can always cut this too. Object, entries, JavaScript.
Menu.
Do you have to do like? Oops.
Oh, you know what? I think this is it. Object, entries.
Yeah.
Menu.
It's like counterintuitive for how most of JavaScript works.
Yeah. I forget sometimes you have to call it on object. So anyway, you can see that can convert the object to an array. And then if you save that, let's say var menu array. Sorry. Let's go back to let menu array equals object entries menu. It's a menu array. And you can convert that back into an object. So object from entries.
Ooh, I've never done that.
Yeah. And so that's kind of converts them back and forth. So that's why arrays are so interesting, is because they connect like a bridge from all these different data structures and then all these different methods that let you work with the data, go through it, take it apart, put it back together. So they're really versatile. So if you can understand arrays, you can do pretty much anything. And then everything else is kind of just a way to do it a little quicker.
And then do you have to put like the same data type for every entry in an array?
Nope, you can mix them up. So
we don't see that very often, do we? But it is possible.
No, what you'll see a lot is something like this, where maybe after a series of manipulations, you get an array that has some items in it. So let's say we'll stick with some vegetables, plant, and then maybe you'll get undefined for one.
Yeah.
And then tomato, something like that. Man, I'm really bad at speller. So you can have a mixed thing, which, generally you don't want.
Yeah.
Because that could be a problem. But this is, again, where one of the nice things about arrays is that you can pull that out. So I see this a lot in some of the projects I've been on, where you'll get an array of data. Maybe what's happening is you're pulling something out of an object, and sometimes it's not there, so you get undefined, but you only want the one that matter. Or you can use one of those array methods called filter. And if you say Boolean, which pretty much means you only want the things that are truthy, so that evaluates to true. So eggplant evaluates to true, undefined does not, and tomato evaluates to true. And so now you'll get just items that are there. And so even if you know you're going to get an array that may not have full integrity and may not have all the information you want, there's a really simple, just few extra characters, and all of a sudden you have the relevant data. Again, one of the reasons they're nice like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think you can also you can get the length of an array also just like a string, can't you?
Yep. That's another good one. So let's say you have a shopping cart. So I'm just going to clear this out and start all over again. So this one comes up all the time. You have a shopping cart. Let's say we're like an office supply store. So you have pencils. Someone put in paper. Maybe they decide to also buy a new chair. Why not? And so maybe in your application, you want to say your shopping cart has 3 items or 4 items or whatever. You can find that with a method called length. And sorry, it's actually not a method, it's a property. And it'll give you a number of items in there. So, if you were having your shopping cart, you just say shopping cart.length. And then if you wanted to list the items, you could do that also.
And how would you add an item to the shopping cart?
So there's different ways to go about it.
I know, right? It's a loaded question now.
Yeah. And so I'll give you the way that was used, and is very common in all the other. You see this in most programming languages, and that's a method called push. And it's one of those weird methods. The name doesn't make any sense. You just have to memorize it.
Push it in.
Yeah, just pushing it in. So let's say you got pencils, you got paper, you need some paper clips. And notice what it returns is the new link, and it actually mutated the array. So it changed the array in place. And that may not be a problem, or it may be a problem. Again, it really depends on what you're doing. So there's a new kind of paradigm for adding things, and it uses kind of an advanced concept called the spread operator. What the spread operator does is it pretty much expands out the array. So in this case, let's make I keep writing var because it's just habit. Let's say updated shopping cart, updated cart equals 3 dots. That means pretty much give me all the items that are already in the shopping cart. And now I'm going to add a new item on there. So we've got pencils, we've got a paper, we've got chairs, we've got paper clips. Maybe we need some push pins. Notice it just returns undefined. That's fine. So updated cart has all the items that we want in there.
Push pins.
Shopping cart has everything except for the one. So that's kind of how you would add something if you don't want to worry about mutating in a place. And when I started, I will admit I didn't quite understand what the big deal was about mutating something. And the reason it's important to think about it is because if you have the data, particularly if you're saving the data in some sort of a store, you want to be very careful, because if you change it someplace and another function is using it, it could cause some unexpected results.
Yeah.
So if you're adding something in, but a function over in another place is not expecting it to be there, then it could create a bunch of issues.
Yep.
Yeah. And that one comes up, the one that comes up the most, and why I brought it up, was the sort function. Because what's weird about the sort is if there's similar items and you sort it. So if we had, before we had the authors, and they were all different. A lot of times you'll have information where there's duplicates. So let's say you had some addresses and you were sorting them by state. Well, you're probably going to have people who are in the same state. When it gets an item that's the same, so if I live in Kansas, if there's someone next to me that's in Kansas, then maybe the first time I'll be ahead of them, and maybe the second time I'll be below them, because based off of how the sorting algorithm works. That means that every time you click sort, it will slightly change the way the information looks, which could be really confusing to users. So that's why you want to be careful about how the data changes.
Cool. That was a great introduction to array methods. Any other things you'd like to mention?
No, I guess not. I think, like I said, I just think they're really nice because you can do all sorts of things with them. I guess my one warning, I think you assign the MDN array. You'll look through there and you're going to see a ton of methods. Just, I think I counted them once, and there's over 50.
Oh yeah, like all the methods that if you just did array.prototype, you would see them. Or just array, I think, actually.
See,
I don't know if they listed in here.
Yeah, probably not. You'd have to, but if you look at MDN, you'll see them. And that can be really confusing. But like a lot of things, and it's the Pareto principle. You'll use 20% of the methods 80% of the time. So length, you'll use that all the time. Once you get comfortable with the array method, you'll use map and filter all the time. Some of them, I was actually looking at them before we started, and there was a few that I had never used ever. But I didn't really
I know. I do use join sometimes, but maybe that's just for showing people what you can do. I'm trying to think of it.
I use join a lot because there's many times where I've had to. It's almost always when you're making a message for a user.
Yeah.
Approve the following XYZ. That's where join comes up a lot. But there's a method, for example, called reverse, where you reverse information.
Oh, that could be an easier way to get the last one, though. Authors reverse 0. Because getting the last one, I did learn like Python and Ruby before JavaScript, and it was so much easier to get the last item.
Yeah,
Whereas
was it
we have to do
-1?
like, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, and I learned JavaScript first, but then I did PHP and Ruby for many years before doing JavaScript almost exclusively, and I still try putting in negative.
I know. I'm like, wait, why doesn't it work?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, length -1.
But the thing about reverse is I was in a coding interview once where I had a problem, and the problem could have been solved in like 2 steps with reverse.
But you didn't know.
But I figured it out anyway. And I think the point there is that I didn't need to know it. There's another way to do it. So don't be intimidated. Don't try and memorize methods. Just cause yourself heartache. Instead, when you come to a situation, and I guess this is my suggestion. When you come to a situation, figure it out. But even if you figure it out, then go back and look it up and see if there's another way, because that's probably the best way.
Yeah.
First figure it out on your own, and then see how someone else figured it out. And that's how you kind of build up the knowledge. And let me show you an example. And this is going to get a little complicated, but I think this is important to understand, like how you can do things multiple ways. So another common thing that I've seen, this comes up in coding interviews all the time, is find the unique items in an array. So let's say you have an array. We'll just call it items because I don't think I've used that yet. This time we'll do fruit. So we'll have apple, banana, apple, plum, apple. Okay, so if you want to get the unique items, I think the first time that I did this, there's a method called reduce, and it's way too complicated for what it does.
Oh, you forgot the dot reduce.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of those ones I always have to think too hard when I use it.
Yeah. But it's also one of those that once you learn how to use it, it makes you feel like super cool. And so you use it probably unnecessarily. You can almost always tell people who have just learned reduce, because all of a sudden they start doing it everywhere, and you're like, hey, don't do that. So what reduce does is it takes an accumulator, so something that you build up. We'll just use ACC for short. And then it takes the item. So first of all, it's confusing because it takes 2 items instead of 1, like most things. And so then you look in here, and accumulator is going to be an array in our case. And we'll say, does this accumulator have this item?
Yeah.
So we'll say is greater than -1, because if it's not there, it'll be -1. Let's start a new line because it's already getting confusing. There's a good chance that I will not get this right on the first try also. In fact, I've already messed it up. So accumulator reduce. Maybe I'll try and do it and then explain it. If, oops. This is the problem with working in the REPL.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Keep trying to do autocomplete.
Oh yeah. I love
Index
my
of
autocomplete.
Of fruit is greater than equal to 0. Return accumulator. Return push root. And then, so if you don't follow it, that's okay. Like I said, this is overly complicated. Nope, now you're going to that's been wrong. Let's just try items.index. Must be index. Apple. I thought it was index up, but I guess I'm wrong. Oh, it was.
Index of fruit, return fruit, push. Maybe it's missing a curly bracket.
Nope, I know what it is. This is an example of why you want to be careful about mutations, because when you push something, it doesn't actually return the array. Remember, it returns the link.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the first time we added something, it returned the link instead of the array. So when we say return the fruit, or push on the fruit and then return.
And then return it. Yeah.
You can cut this all if you want. This may be getting too much into the weeds. There you go. So it gave us the simplified item. So I figured this out, and I remember thinking, wow, I'm so cool. Look at me. I used a reducer. And then I said, this seems unnecessarily complicated. And it turns out there is, because there's actually something in JavaScript called set. And a set is an array-like object. It's not an array, but it's an array-like object that can only have unique items. So I'm trying to remember how you instantiate it.
Maybe with the array? I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember. So let's try that. Apple, banana. Yep, there you go. And you see, the confusing part is it returns that structure that looks kind of like an object, but it doesn't. Well, you can actually, with the spread operator, combine these all together. And so if you wanted to find the unique items, you could just do this. We're going to spread out the set. So when we do that, we're going to convert it from this array-like object into an array. And we're going to pass in our items. And boom, you have your unique
array.
So rather than going through that incredibly complicated reduce method, which, as you saw, this is the process of writing it, I screwed it up 3 or 4 different times, you have this one-liner. And I didn't know that existed until I looked it up after I solved the problem.
Of course.
I think, a piece of advice there is, don't use Stack Overflow if you don't know the answer. Use it if you don't know the answer, and also if you know the answer. And that's how you gain new skills. Like, that's the fun part of it. And that's how you're going to do a lot of array methods, is because you'll see people who have figured out how to do these things before 2 different steps instead of a for loop or something else.
Yeah, I love learning new things every time whenever I watch someone else program.
Yeah, exactly. Because everyone has their own style. They have their own history of things they've worked with and different people at different places. And this all kind of bubbles up into their unique style. Because I think that's something that, I'm going to digress here. Something that people who don't understand about development is that there's not a right or wrong answer. Tons of different ways to go about something. As long as the result may be correct, but it's not like, there has to be one way to do this 7 or 8 different ways. And half of which could be equally good. It really depends on what's something that the rest of your team would be able to read, what's something that you'll be able to understand in the future. And that's really a better consideration than, did you get the results you want? Because there's lots of ways to get the result.
Yeah, definitely. Well, awesome. I think that was a great introduction to arrays and beyond.
Yeah. Sorry, we're getting in the weeds there, but
that's cool. Do you want to tell them about your book also that you wrote on JavaScript?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So the book is called Simplifying JavaScript. It's published by Pragmatic Press, and it's set up as a series of tips. So the idea is that once you kind of start to get comfortable with this stuff, it'll give you some ideas for how to use different tools. So some of the things we went over today are good examples, like using array methods and what situations would you want to use those in, and what the value they give you. Because JavaScript is constantly updating with new features, and it's really easy to take a new feature and just kind of cram it into your code. So what I try and do in the book is trying to give you ways of thinking about features to see, like, what's the value added, what's the problems they solve. And so that's kind of what the book's about.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, appreciate it.